What is happening, YouTube? Cowboy here, and welcome to another Dragon Age Inquisition build video. This time around, we are taking a look at Archer Tempest. Now, Tempest in general is an incredibly powerful specialization. Some have taken to calling it godlike just based on how powerful your flasks alone are. It can be played very effectively as either a dagger or an archer-based Tempest. Since the first time we meet Sarah, she's rocking a bow, and she is the default Tempest of the game, I felt it would be most appropriate to show you how to make a bow-based Tempest. So the Tempest boasts very high DPS, the single highest damaging ability in the game, only outclassed by Mark of Death, which, takes everyone's damage together, obviously. But it also has extremely powerful utility. It can, dodge anything in the game. It can res people in the worst situations. And all in all, it's an extremely powerful class to have at your disposal and a lot of fun to play. So, hopping into our skill tree and showing you what we took and why. First off, in the Tempest tree, our first ability, obviously Flask of Fire, especially with the upgrade of Unquenchable Flames, is going to be a must grab. Now, what Flask of Fire with the upgrade effectively does is it makes it so that when our Flask of Fire is active, our abilities have no cooldown, in addition to no resource cost. And this also works with your ultimate of 1,000 Cuts, giving you an incredibly powerful ability, especially at tier 3, allowing you to do 300% weapon damage at 38 hits, coming out to approximately 16,000 weapon damage. And basically with your Flask of Fire, you can do this every 30 seconds, allowing you to decimate anything and everything that could potentially pose a challenge to you. Now, the brokenness of Flask of Fire and 1,000 Cuts aside, this also allows you to spam a number of abilities. From range, you can spam Long Shot, absolutely decimating enemies. You can spam Leaping Shot from a close range, doing tons and tons of upfront burst damage, as well as getting multiple hidden blade procs. And all in all, it's just a fantastic flask to have. So moving down from there, we're going to have Fury of the Swarm, giving us a quick 10% damage bonus as long as we're at 50% stamina or below. Of course, we're going to pick up 1,000 Cuts. But moving down in our tree, we're going to pick up Killer's Alchemy. You can use more concentrated elixirs that give you an uncanny edge in battle. You do bonus damage with all attacks for a short time whenever you use an elixir or potion, and the effect stacks. Now, this is important because it's a 15% damage bonus that does stack. So, real quick, on our character screen, when I use a flask, you can see the little icon next to the flask right there. It looked like a little skull and crossbones. That Killer's Alchemy. And more importantly, this also applies to tonics. So in particular, I have Tears of the Dead on, which basically gives us weapon poison damage that is stackable. When I pop one of those, it'll also apply the same effect. If you're looking for one tonic in particular, I would highly suggest getting the Mighty Offensive tonic. It is located on a mage that just kind of wanders around the Storm Coast area, so he is a little bit tricky to find. But the fully upgraded version of that tonic gives you 100% bonus critical hit damage, which, as you can imagine, is pretty beefy. So moving down from there, we of course are going to grab our ultimate with Flask of Lightning, as well as the upgrade for Quicksilver, putting it at a total of 7 seconds of duration and giving us a speed reduction up to 99%. Now, what is so fantastic about Flask of Lightning is, in essence, this is similar to the Kinetic Enchanter's Disruption Field, but it affects everything. So when your Flask of Lightning is up, to you, everyone else, like you're moving at normal speed, and everyone else is just kind of frozen around. Now, if you were to use it on Sarah and then switch to another character, all of a sudden she's running around like she's literally Quicksilver or the Flash. You see her zipping around, firing off her bow like it's a frickin' machine gun. And there's a lot of awesome utility that you can use the spell for. You can effectively pop this and dodge a fireball that's like a foot from your face. You can pop this and resurrect teammates while the enemies are just kind of helplessly frozen in time. You can even just pop it and do tons of DPS while your enemy can't really do anything, making it both an incredibly damaging and amazing utility ability at the same time. Now, moving on from there, we are going to pick up Flask of Frost. And we're not going to use it much. Well, and what I mean by that, we are going to use it because it's going to be part of our rotation, but it doesn't have as much worth to us as the Flask of Fire or the Flask of Lightning have. And the main reason we're going to pick this up is for the synergy it has with Ride the Storm, which we'll go into in just a second. Now, as a melee-based Tempest, if you're using daggers, I would actually suggest Flask of Frost a lot more, especially with Bitter Chill. The way Flask of Frost works is you're going to get 85% damage resistance, which is certainly nothing to scoff at, and any enemies that attack you will be frozen for 1 second. So with the upgrade, this would taunt enemies. As an archer, enemies are never going to really be within 5 meters of us, at least they shouldn't be if you're playing your class correctly, making it a wasted upgrade point. Moving down from there, we're going to grab Flask Masker, pretty much just for progression down into our tree. However, this does give us a 1 more maximum potion, and of course a 25% chance to not use our tonics when we're popping them. And then we're moving down into Ride the Storm. Now, Ride the Storm is pretty much the only real reason that I even bothered to pick up Ice Flask on this build. And the reason for this is that with the bonus 3-second duration, our Flask of Lightning effectively lasts 10 seconds, our Flask of Fire will last 8, and our Flask of Frost will last 8. And as you can see, the cooldown time on all these abilities is around 27.2 because I have a superb cooldown amulet, making it so that I can effectively cycle between all 3 flasks indefinitely. So basically every 10 seconds, I'm going to either have no cooldowns and no cost on my abilities, a ton of extra defense going up through the 85% damage resistance, or I'm effectively freezing time through my Lightning Flask. And so basically, through effective use of Ride the Storm, you just constantly cycle through all of your Flask abilities, always giving you some type of edge in battle. Now moving on from there, we are going to go into the archery tree, and as you can see, we've pretty much filled everything up. Death from above, pretty obvious, 25% damage bonus, pretty significant when we're at that maximum height of 2 meters. Leaping Shot, along with the upgrade of Rolling Draw, giving us a very high damaging move and one of our most damaging moves. Now, although Full Draw will hit harder than Leaping Shot, the reason I'm saying this is Leaping Shot has a relatively quick animation, and with a Flask of Fire, you can effectively spam this out 5 or 6 times in 1 Flask of Fire, resulting in a ton of upfront damage since each Leaping Shot is hitting for about 600% weapon damage. Additionally, we're going to get Rolling Draw, giving us a nice little knockdown, which will synergize well with other team abilities. Strafing Shot's a pretty obvious choice because while we're in combat, the last thing we want to do is sacrifice speed. And then we're going to work our way down to getting Full Draw, which is a ton of upfront damage. It's how we're going to open in fights, in addition to Stunning Shot, giving us a very powerful CC device that can be very beneficial in teamfight situations for taking that one target that's kind of off and putting them to sleep. Of course, we're also going to want to grab Long Shot as well as Archer's Lance. Now, when I first started playing, I wasn't a fan of Archer's Lance because, you know, rips through every enemy along its path. It sounds like it's not going to be that effective, but when it says path, it's actually pretty wide. We're looking at a width of about 2 to 3 meters. So if you target one enemy in the back of a pack, this will tear through every single one of them, and especially, once again, in conjunction with our Flask of Fire, can allow us to do a ton of upfront burst damage. So moving down from there to the other side, of course, we're going to want First Blood, giving us an extra 15% boost against any enemy over 80%. We're going to pick up Explosive Shot just for progression. We're not even going to put it on our bar. And we're going to move down to get Pin Cushion, which gives us a nice building damage bonus against bigger enemies such as giants or dragons. So moving on from there, we are going to go into the Double Daggers tree. And while Twin Fangs isn't going to help us at all, we do want Dance of Death, giving us 50 stamina restored on kill, and more importantly, Sneak Attack, giving us a huge critical hit chance boost anytime we are flanking or at a target's back. Now, you may be wondering why I decided to pick up the 50 stamina on kill versus Looked Like It Hurt, which gives us 10 stamina restored on every critical hit. And the main reason being is that in the Tempest tree, if you remember, under Fury of the Storm, we have a 10% damage bonus that'll stay up if we're below 50% stamina. Because we have such a high critical hit chance already, and we're going to have the critical hit chance from Sneak Attack, if we do have Looked Like It Hurt, it actually makes it quite difficult to stay below 50 stamina because our crits are flying our stamina up so fast. Whereas, on the other hand, with Dance of Death, every time we kill somebody, we're getting a big chunk of 50 stamina just up front, and that's going to allow us to drop out any ability we need to and drop back down below that 50% threshold, effectively allowing us to maintain that 10% damage boost more effectively. Now, our last 2 points, we are going to go into the Subterfuge tree and pick up both Stealth and Lost in Shadows. In my opinion, Stealth is just a wonderful utility move, especially with the upgrade, allowing you to instantly drop aggro, instantly drop any debilitating effects that are on your character, and it really is an invaluable tool in the battlefield. So from there, moving on into our inventory. For our weapon, we of course have a bow masterworked with hidden blades, 10% chance with 5 added hits on the hidden blades. We decided to go with Fire Rune just because I think it looks freaking sweet. Our main upgrades being plus attack percentage and plus flanking damage percentage. And then the bow was crafted with 20 cunning, 20 dex, giving us a pretty high boost to our critical hit chance and critical damage bonus. Moving down into the armor, in a similar fashion, we once again went with the hidden blades. And since it was the Prowler quote, we also had to pull some like warrior or metallic materials in, so we decided to opt for constitution and strength, which, I mean, at first glance, strength obviously isn't necessarily ideal, but it does give us some bonus damage against guard. And then aside from that, we of course got 12 cunning, 12 dex, and then we boosted our magic and range defense, since I wanted to have nice resistances against the things that could affect me from afar. I also of course put on hidden blades as well. The helmet is really whatever you can find. We went with Duke's Mane, which gives us a little bit of melee defense, a nice heal bonus, and some strength. I mean, I haven't found any good schematics to make helmets, so it's just one that I happened to find and just put it on, so ignore the helmet. But moving down into our accessories, of course, superb cooldown amulet, especially effective considering we want to be popping those flasks as they come off cooldown, and that reduction is going to help us out since only our lightning flask is 10 seconds and the other are limited to 8 seconds. Superb ring of bleeding along with staggering, making it so we're getting nice little bleed procs on our enemies, and staggering is especially effective on an archer, which gives us a chance to mini stun our targets. Our last one is a superior belt of focus, which is especially effective on Sarah since her focus ability of 1000 cuts is immensely powerful. And while in an ideal situation you would only use 1000 cuts when Flask of Fire is up, resulting in you never having to expend your focus, sometimes I don't feel like waiting 30 seconds and I'll end up popping 1000 cuts with the Flask of Fire and then immediately popping it again just to decimate larger enemies. So this helps to build our focus back up rather quickly. So in general at this point I go and take on some stuff solo. I wasn't able to find any group of enemies, so instead we're going to try and solo a rift. Of course, we are on Nightmare, so things might get a little rough here. We're going to put her in stealth so she doesn't get involved. We, of course, have her turned off on passive. And let's find a target to open up on. So, always open with your full draw. We're going to actually open with lightning. So we're going to get right in this guy's flank, just start laying some damage into him while he can't move at all. Of course, as our flask is ending, make sure to pop another one. And that's probably the most important thing, is making sure that you always have a flask up regardless of what flask it's going to be. Because of the fact of Ride the Storm, we want to get the bonus flask duration out of that. We got a Terror popping up on us, that's fine. We got Fire up. We can get some good leaping shots, get a lot of damage into him up front, and he's going to go after miss. I don't appreciate that. So we're going to take him down, and we have left a Pride Demon, and I think there's one more back there. Where's he at? Where is he at? No, that's just the rift, I guess. So it's just me and Pride Demon. You can just stay in stealth. You don't need to do anything. And while time is frozen, we're going to heal up. Get our poison up on our weapon. Now the big thing to be careful with when you're doing this many leaping shots is, most importantly on rifts, make sure that you're not leaping out of the bounds of the rift. I've done this quite a lot, and it's really embarrassing to do, because you basically leap far enough that the you just fly out of the bounds of the rift and it resets, and then you're like, well, I feel kind of like an asshole now, so don't do that. It's not fun when you do. It's pretty embarrassing. Once again, going for our leaping shots here. Tons of upfront burst damage, especially with Flask of Fire up. And as you can see, we just shit all over that rift, completely solo with Tempest. So of course, as always, after showing you how Tempest works solo, it's now time to show you how it works in a group. Coincidentally enough, I just found a camp of baddies that I could have fought solo before, but it's obviously a little bit past the point now. But either way, we're going to slaughter these guys real quick, and then move on and tackle the rift. Now, obviously, when you're with your team, if anything, it's going to be even easier to rotate through your flasks, since that's primarily all you really need to focus about. So just keep your flask rotation up. Obviously, as you can see right now, the entire team is pretty much frozen, and we're able to just do whatever we want, go in, do damage. It's an excellent use of this is, as I mentioned, picking people up that have fallen down. Let me actually turn on my rogue real fast. I noticed she's still not fighting. Yes, you can put your AI back on. But all in all, I mean, you kind of just sit in the back as a Tempest and just, you know, go to town, do damage, fuck enemies up, and not much really gives you an issue. You know, we're able to just kind of chill back and pump out loads of DPS. Like I said, we have the ability to res people through our Flask of Lightning. We have the ability to do insane amounts of single target DPS through our Flask of Fire, just to show you the wombo combo at least once. So these guys aren't really appropriate for it. They're all kind of shitty enemies, but let's do it on this guy. So Flask, followed by 1,000 cuts. And then we're back out. And as you can see, we still have all our focus, allowing us to effectively do 1,000 cuts again. Now, there's been a lot of discussion about whether or not this has been patched with the recent patches. Right now, it is 12/14/2014. So we're about midway through December. Whether or not this has been patched yet, I would say obviously no, because we just pulled it off perfectly. So, in the very least, on Xbox One, this has not been patched, and you can still abuse that on dragons. So let's find something big. We got the Greater Terror, for example. Perfect target for us to go to town on, and it's kind of like an Omni Slash on steroids. You know, we're just jumping all over the place, absolutely decimating enemies. And it really is a fun class for damage, just because you're able to, you know, constantly just decide like, oh, they're on top of me, I'm going to jump into stealth, I don't feel like dealing with this bullshit, or oh, this guy's being a pain in the ass, I think I'm going to kill him. Like, oh, you thought you were going to attack Vivian? No, instead, 1,000 cuts is just going to tear you a new butthole. So, you can enjoy that. And that's a Rift. I mean, you know, decimated everything. I don't think the party even used, I think they might have used one potion. But, you know, all in all, Tempest is a lot of fun to play. And this is coming from someone that absolutely loves Assassin. And, you know, as much as I love Assassin, I'm almost on the fence about making a new Tempest character, because it is so awesome being able to rotate between basically freezing time, having no cooldowns, having the burst of 1,000 cuts, and on top of that, having massive defensive boost from Flask of Frost. That, all in all, it is a really fun class, and it is absurdly powerful. So either way, thank you very much for watching, guys. In terms of what to expect next, since I have gone through the full party, please make suggestions for what you guys would like to see. I have a couple things I've considered, one being going more into the Rift Mage, but so far I haven't really been able to work out a Rift Mage that's quite as powerful as it should be. I've tried out a couple things, but we're getting close. Either way, make sure to drop a request regarding what type of build you guys would like to see next, and we will see you next time with more Dragon Age Inquisition.